Last player. I was the only one left. I was the only chance at winning. I only had 10 minutes. I didn't light the other candle, just my own. Having to keep track of 2 lit candles in both hands was a hindrance, not an advantage. The soft chuckle of the king was undoubtedly impressed.
Sacrificing an advantage that would prove an obstacle for a more secure position. Thought you would see through that trick.
Wait, if he knew I would see through it, he must have some other kind of backup plan. I was already scrambling to my feet, candle gripped tightly in my hands when my friends began to move forward. Where'd the rat go? It wasn't beside me anymore. I was frantically looking around for my friend who'd helped me nearly the whole game when I saw Josie's face. White hair, gaunt cheeks, pale skin, eyes sunken into her head. She was smiling so wide her skin seemed to crack. Benny was beside her. The only difference was that his skin was a slightly brighter shade. Greg and Carlton were on either side of the two, all smiling right at me so wide their cheeks cracked. I nearly screamed, but my mouth remained clamped shut. I held the candle out in front of me as a meager kind of protection. My friends stopped in their tracks, still smiling at me with wide eyes. Their eyelids didn't even twitch. Something brushed past my neck, slowly, tenderly trailing across the nape of it. Warm air washed over my ears. Thin, hard tendrils slowly wrapped around my shoulder.
Let me show you what it is to be afraid.
I shut my eyes tight. Then I heard my friends giggling with husky voices and the slow shuffling of their footsteps. When my eyelids snapped open, Josie's face was inches from the candle. I stumbled back, nearly falling over. I thought I was going to collide with the thing behind me, but I didn't. I kept walking back away from my friends until I hit the wall. Where the hell was that rat? My friends stopped. Sickly green light began gently descending onto them. I looked up to see holes in the ceiling. The sky was plainly visible, and so was the green sun that floated across it. It filled the entire sky, growing bigger and bigger with every passing second. I could see the cells of it pulsing like a heart. Then, slowly, the sun began to shrink, seeming to pull into itself. Then, in a blinding flash of light, it expanded. I covered my eyes, trying to block it. I learned recently that it takes 7 minutes for light to reach the earth from the sun. That knowledge first made me think that I was about to die. Then I realized I should be dead already. I looked back up. The sun hadn't changed.
A poor trick, I admit. Of course, one day the sun you humans orbit will die and consume your world. Will it be today? Tomorrow? In your grandchildren's lives? Who knows? Does that keep you up at night?
Sometimes it did, but I couldn't say a word. A shuffling in front of me got my attention. My friends were moving again. I kept holding out the candle, keeping them at bay. Then it went out. In a few seconds I'd be able to relight it, but I couldn't take my eyes off my friends. Benny began to break off from the group, moving to the side. I kept my back against the wall as I moved away, then paused. Greg and Carlton were slowly shuffling to cut me off. I glanced from one to the other. Josie, Carlton, Greg, Benny, all staring at me with wide smiles and unblinking eyes, trying to formulate a plan. Then something occurred to me. None of them had laid a hand on me. They had ample opportunity to, but they didn't take the chance. Why didn't they? Unless the king only needed me to scream, to give in. He didn't need to harm me, and harming me to get a scream out of me would be cheating. It wouldn't count as real fear, would it? I took a step forward slowly. My friends backed away. I took another step, and so did they. Slowly, I kept walking until the plump orange candle was at my feet again. I bent down, picked it up, lit it with the other candle, then set it at my feet. My friends were still smiling at me without even blinking, surrounding me, but my fear of them had not evaporated, but lessened.
You've caught on. You've caught on to the secret. Very astute. How odd that one so young should be so astute, so cunning, with such self-control and resilience as you? Why?
I tensed.
Why would you have such talent? Were you born with it, or, was it nurtured?
I spun around, eyes darting from one smiling gaunt face to another.
Who nurtured your talents? Did they mean to? Was it your parents?
My hair began to stand on end. The king seemed to press their advantage.
Do you love your parents? Do they know you're here? Know you're playing the midnight game?
I bit my bottom lip, hard. A small trickle of blood ran down my chin.
Tut. You shouldn't hurt yourself like that.
The next time he spoke, it was right next to my ear.
Have you ever wanted to kill a man?
My breath hitched in my throat as I inhaled sharply through my nostrils.
Does that frighten you?
I couldn't answer.
I see. That is your fear. Someone as young as you shouldn't have such desires. And that frightens you. In your heart, you imagine finding the people who hurt you and taking their lives with your own hands. In your heart lies a darkness rarely found in such a young heart.
The king paused, then I heard his voice silently whisper. Another responded.
I see.
In a single instance, the entire room became silent. Like when the midnight game had started, when I couldn't even hear myself breathe or the beating of my heart. Laughter began to fill the room. Sick, twisted, mocking laughter. The laughter was identical to mine. I felt something slide across my shoulders, but my hairs didn't stand on edge. I was already covered in goosebumps. It's odd. While I was terrified when the game started, having spent nearly an entire hour afraid, I didn't feel like screaming anymore. I almost felt numb to the fear.
Time is passing quickly, but this was inevitable. Soon enough, an empty threat of fear stops being effective, leaving one recourse.
Something grabbed my shoulder, and I turned instantly, expecting to see nothing. I didn't. I only saw gnarled knuckles, and fingers ending in black nails, curved like claws.
Fill the fear.
I was pulled backward and tossed across the ground with ease, my candle falling from my hands and landing on the ground. It went out instantly. I blinked in shock at what I saw standing above me. It was a gray, malformed person, with lips that were cracked in several places, revealing twisted teeth that pushed through them. Rows of them were growing out of the gums behind the lips, while two gleaming eyes, both a color I couldn't possibly name, stared down at me. This was the King of Terrors, wasn't it? I was only looking at his head, but that was all it took for whatever courage I had mustered to begin leaving me.
And now?
The king said softly, bending into a crouch. My friends were behind him, mimicking his movements with uncanny precision. I finally saw something in their empty eyes. The same thing I could see in the king's eyes. That same little gleam. His lips didn't move as he spoke.
The game ends.
His gaze locked on mine. I could feel invisible strings linking us together. Like worms, they slinked through my eyelids and into my head. A scream began to rise in my throat. It was at that moment the rat came back. The first thing I heard was their shrill chirp, then an enraged howl, before there was an immense thundering. Then a set of doors which I hadn't noticed in my haste burst open, and a man with a ghastly beard burst through, rushing toward the group in front of me. I saw something black rush past his feet as he barreled into Greg and Josie. The king spun around for a moment, then vanished.
So close. So close.
That was when Greg's alarm went off. I can't exactly explain what happened next. Only that when the asylum began to shake, the walls fell away. Not the walls of the building, more like pieces of the world around me, down to their very atoms, began to fall away, like wet mud sliding off a window. What was revealed was a vast, seething mass of... The closest thing I can compare it to is a maggot, but that's not right either. Whatever it was sleeping, and it was just on the edge of my vision. I barely noticed it at all. Then a set of small feet crawled up my arm and onto my face, blocking my vision again. When the rat got off my face, my friends and I were back in the cell where it had all started. They were all passed out cold, leaving me the only one to see that their candles had melted down to the bottom. I had to wait until they woke up before we left. None of them had any memory of the midnight game or what had happened after their candles went out the first time. None of them asked me what happened either. Can't bring myself to tell them. As we left, I couldn't help glancing over my shoulder every now and then. Graffiti left by other visitors served as a reminder that we weren't the first to come here or leave. I wondered about that howling man who'd somehow been with us during the game. I'm not entirely sure if I imagined it all. Sometimes at night I lay awake, too afraid to sleep. I have something else to keep me up now, along with the thought my dad will come into my bed again, even though he's rotting in a cell somewhere. I learned how to stop myself screaming, if only to make sure he didn't enjoy it as much. I never thought that would help me with something like that. As we left the asylum, I considered how I felt about Josie, and honestly I couldn't see anything happening between us. We were young and were better as friends. That's how we've stayed since then. Even though my friends don't remember what happened when we played the midnight game, I felt like it drew us together somehow, made our bond stronger. I couldn't have been the only one to notice it, but they never said anything. Sometimes, when I see a rat, it will lock its gaze with mine, and just stay there, staring at me. Not one has ever winked. Thank you so much for checking out today's video. A huge thank you to Zachary Scott, Eric L., Ryan Booth, GamerGirlCat94, Safe by Voice, Hana Uta, Mysterious Torua, and Mattingham for helping me out today. If you missed the last episode and want to catch up, click that box on the left. Or, if you'd like to see something a little different, click that box on the right to check out our latest Let's Voice Act series. Thanks for watching! Stay creepy, everybody.